Welcome back to another Lab tutorial. Today, we're going to be jumping into some sound design stuff. Going through my inbox today, got a nice request from a community member with a question that is actually a bit more common than you might realize. The question is this: how can we go about making professional, cinematic quality sounds, drones, atmospheres, background elements, different types of Foley techniques, etc., without using synthesis, okay, without a lot of complicated learning curve tools, preferably using just the tools in their DAW, no third-party tools. And they'd like the workflow to be fairly intuitive so they can apply it to different ideas in their music production sessions. So these are all fair requests. It's certainly able to be done. And no one should ever feel bad about not feeling that confident inside of a synth. It's just not for everyone. So what we're going to do is take just some basic audio, just some basic stock audio from a DAW, and we're going to manipulate it in a couple of ways and show you how to set up some routing and what type of processing to apply to accomplish something fairly impressive in just a couple of minutes. All right, so great way to add a whole bunch of stuff to your sonic arsenal without dropping a single dime. All right, so without further ado, we're using Logic Pro X here. You can use any DAW to follow along. We're just going to grab some simple, clean, acoustic guitar fingerpicking. And we're actually just going to use this one right here, this Moody fingerpicking number 6. Okay, the reason why we chose it is because it's higher up in the register. It's only 2 beats long, and it was originally captured at a fairly low BPM. So why we chose those things will probably reveal themselves over the next couple of minutes. But this is what we're going to start with. And yeah, sure, we can import the tempo information. We don't need that empty track up there. So the first thing we're going to do here is, and again, just to refresh your memory, this is what it sounds like. Okay. Nothing too fancy. We're actually just going to duplicate this down here. Okay. On the first track, we're just going to turn on our flex mode and set it to speed. And we'll just drag this out, say, to about 4 bars and listen to that. Okay, cool. Now, it probably sounds like a brooding piano of some kind, but if you stop and you think about what a piano is and what a guitar is, and how those strings are producing the sounds that we hear, they're actually quite similar in nature. So, second track here, our duplicate, is going to also be flex time or flex mode enabled on speed mode. And let's just double this one and see what this one sounds like. It's very deep. It's very, very quiet. And we're going to work on that. Oh, well, there we go. That might be why. We'll just set those to 0 and we'll let you hear those again. Still pretty quiet, and we will still work on that. And let's go ahead and loop this out so they match up at a full 8 bars. Let's play them together, see what they sound like. Okay, that natural long release, the notes are overlapping by quite a bit. In its original state, you really don't hear a lot of that, or maybe you do, but you just don't recognize it. It's not an area of emphasis by any means at its original pitch and speed. But here, all that stuff is exposed. So the next step in the process is we're just going to send both of these out to a bus. And we're going to set these to pre-fader mode. That way we can freely alter the volume on both of these tracks independent from the send. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and we'll set both of these at max. Or at 0 decibels rather. Now on our auxiliary track, what we'll do is we'll solo it, and we'll just go ahead and put on a fairly basic reverb. We're going to go for something big. Here, I'll pull this down to the middle of the screen for you. A hall. Let's shoot for right down the middle. Let's go for this dream hall, see what this sounds like. Yeah, I like this one already. Let's just go ahead and turn up some pre-delay, add a little bit of filter and resonance to this. Open up this filter a bit so we can get more of this sound in its original state here. Let's drop out some of the super low end so we don't muddy up our reverb too much. Okay, so that's sounding pretty nice. But what this person was asking for was a truly cinematic type of experience. And that does not simply mean adding reverb. Okay, that's just not how it's done. We're using a tool called Space Designer. And I know that I'm a fairly well-known Logic fanboy, but I do believe that this is one of the greatest sound design plugin tools ever created. Regardless of what DAW you're using and what kind of sounds you're making, this is just, it's such a beautiful piece of software. What we're going to do is we're going to take the sample rate down to 1/4 of its original. It's going to slow this down quite a bit. Let's go ahead and listen to the result. Yeah, that's really nice. That is really nice. Very smooth. And that's what we'd like. So we'll just call that good. And let's listen to it with the original sound played back together. Okay, the first two tracks, especially the second one, the one that is stretched out twice as much, is already pretty low. What we don't want is there to be a bunch of conflict in those really low frequency range areas that tend to cause muddiness issues. So we'll just go ahead and take our auxiliary channel that has the reverb loaded. We'll add an EQ. Turn on our analyzer so we can see what we're doing, and roll off some of this low end here. You can hear the difference here. Not a big difference. That's good. Okay, so that should help kind of clean up our mix just a little bit. All right, the next thing we'll want to do is, let's see here. Let's go ahead and bust this out to, all right, this is our reverb channel now. We'll bust this signal out. And let's go ahead and do this one pre-fader, just be proactive here. And let's go ahead and solo auxiliary number 2, and let's listen to it. This should just be our signal coming through from auxiliary run. Okay, and we'll go ahead and we'll add a filter on here. And our auto filter will allow us to add some simple filter modulation. And that usually adds a fair bit of interest. Very little effort involved here. Okay, let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so we've got a nice, nice little wobble happening there. We're gonna have to change this up a bit more, though. How about we do some panning? We'll do some panning, and that should spread this out just enough for us. Make sure we have a little bit of offset here. What do we think here? Probably 2 bars or so. Break down our symmetry just a bit and our smoothing just a bit, so it's a little less predictable. Okay, so that sounds all right. Again, this is all very subtle right now. Just kind of trust the process. Let's listen to all these put together. Okay, so we obviously need to do a bit of mixing here, and we're also going to take out a bunch of the low end here of our wobble. This is an auto pan effect set up through a tremolo plugin. We actually did a quick walkthrough of this technique recently on our YouTube channel. You can check it out. Okay, so now we've got these different layers, and what we need to do is figure out the right volume balance for all of them. So what I'm going to do is take down our main guitar part, the one that sounds like a fairly brooding piano. Bring that down. We want our wobbling, our modulation to be very subtle. You want it to be something that people kind of barely pick up on. Let's listen to this now. I'll just crank up the output here so you can hear a little bit better. All right, that is sounding all right. The next thing we need to do is just increase our overall perceived loudness here, and we'll want to do this in a 2-step process. The compressor can be used to increase the lesser heard elements a bit. We'll go ahead and we'll use a vintage optical circuit type for this. And I'll just talk through the process here. So we want a fairly long knee. We want this to be smooth. We want the attack to be fairly high, so our sound, the bulk of our transient makes it through as these different hits are taking place. We can see that we're dropping a fair bit, upwards of 3 dB. We're going to go just above that probably. When it's all said and done, we can even add just a little bit of distortion. Okay, now we don't, we want this to be louder, of course, but what we don't want to do is start increasing the volume of all these elements that are just going to end up being kind of noisy in the end. So where a compressor will reduce the volume of any peak above a threshold, an expander will do the opposite. So let's go ahead and add one of those. So that way what we can do is increase the perceived loudness of the louder elements rather than the quieter elements. Let's take a listen to this. Okay, and as you can see, we're just doing this on the output strip here. You might want to actually create a summing track for this. This is just for the sake of the tutorial here. And we're going to do a little bit more volume mixing just to balance this out just a bit more. We're going to take down the guitar track that sounds a bit like a piano. And we're going to take down our modulation just a little bit. Listen to this again. Okay, as you know, most times you're going to want to add just a little bit of a fade to get rid of any type of clicking that may or may not be present in this in these samples. So we're just going to add a single tick or two to these. This is not. Oops, that was delay. There we go. Fade in and fade out, and that's just to get us a little relief from the chop points here. So there you go. We've basically created a dark, brooding, atmospheric piano, if you will. It actually sounds fairly similar to the Giant from Native Instruments. Runs inside a Contact. Maybe you've heard of it. It's actually one of the more popular software pianos around. But this was actually created from a sample that was just some acoustic guitar fingerpicking, which makes this a bit cooler, I think, because you know that, and that sparks creative juices in you as you're working and as you're discovering these effects that these different techniques can have on a sound. It's generating more ideas and inspiration for you as you go on. So yes, of course, you could have just picked a piano sample and started there, but we didn't. We used a guitar because it kind of it increases that creative energy. So that's it, and that is a great example of why you should give us a quick shout out if you have requests for tutorials or lessons, pro tips, whatever you're looking for. Let us know. You can go ahead and leave us a comment in the area below. You can shoot us a quick email through any one of our websites. Visit us on our social media profiles across the World Wide Web. However you want to do it, just get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Always good to know that the people are happy with what we're putting out there. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. We hope that this helped clear up some questions, gave you some good ideas, and some ideas that can actually be put to good use in your very next project. Until next time, we'll see you again soon. Cheers.